kitchen, pour myself a cup of ambition, yawn and stretch and try to come to life. Jump in the shower and the blood starts pumping. Out on the streets, the traffic starts jumping with folks like me on the job from 9 to 5. Working 9 to 5.
We're back. It's Facebook. It's Facebook, but we're also Office Hours Live. And, you try, when you have to fish for applause, it is really pathetic. But this time, will you please do me a favor? I'm live, you're live. We're 9 to 5, we're alive. Tell your friends and share this, because there's no point in being alive if people are not alive. So we now have 900 of you. 900 of you are already watching. And we'll start when we get, 2,000? 3,000. So share this. Get people who are going, I'll start. I'm going to be here. We're up to 1,400. We're almost there. Dolly Parton. I'll talk about Dolly Parton while we're waiting, because I've always wanted to meet Dolly Parton. Now, you know this. Dolly Parton was born in 1946. She's about 5 feet tall. And I just love her. Isn't that great music? Seriously. And it's the kind of music that makes you want to dance. And one day on this particular, let's call it a show. It's not really a show. I'm going to dance. But we can't get started until we get up to the right numbers. So how close are we? We're up to 1,900. 1,900. But now, if you're already watching, please do not leave, because if you leave, then we get into a vicious cycle, and I'm just sitting here waiting for us to get up to 3,000. But while we're waiting, let me tell you what we are going to be talking about. Obviously, we're going to be talking about politics today. I've got to stop this. We're going to be talking about politics. I kind of like that theme music. We're going to be talking about politics, obviously, and the political economy. We're talking about what happened on Tuesday in terms of the so-called Acela primaries. The upcoming primaries, we're going to be talking about you and me and voting and this country. And have some things I want to announce. Some things that I want to, particularly, I want to talk about Bernie and Hillary and Ted Cruz and the Drumpf and even Paul Ryan. It gets in the news. And I also want to answer your questions. So we're very, very close. What are we up to now? We are up to 2,400. If you can just share this so we can get up to 3,000, and then we can begin, all right? But don't leave. Don't even take a break. Don't even take a refrigerator or bathroom break or whatever you're doing, because this is important stuff we're going to get into. And your questions are important. I want to get to your questions. But while we are waiting, are we there? We're there. We've got to share. While we are waiting, I just wanted to bring you up to the scoreboard. The scoreboard, politically, as you can see, Ted Cruz is right here, 546 out of 1,237 that you need for the Republican nomination. Donald Trump, 953. He is storming ahead, and John Kasich, 153. There is absolutely no way that Cruz or Kasich has a chance in Republican hell unless Trump is stopped from getting anywhere near 1,237. And let me just say quickly on the Democratic side, Hillary Clinton, 1,663 right now. But if we consider all of her super delegates, all of the insiders who want to vote for her as well, have told her they will vote for her at the convention, she's up much closer. She's still not there at the 2,383 mark. And then we have Bernie Sanders, 1,367. Again, not a huge, even now, after the Acela primaries, not that big a difference unless you consider the difference in super delegates, and there is a large difference. We're here. We're at 3,000. So I can actually now officially begin this. Hello. How are you? So here are the upcoming: Indiana and Nebraska, West Virginia, Kentucky. You can see Indiana, May 3rd, very important for the Republicans. That's going to be make it or break it for the Drumpf, Donald Trump. And Nebraska, West Virginia, May 10th. With May 10th, particularly Nebraska is Republican. Kentucky, May 17th, that's for the Democrats. And then the big June 7th primaries, and that's California, New Jersey, New Mexico, and North and South Dakota. So you have that. You know where we're going. Just something I want to say about Hillary Clinton, whom I have known since she was 19. So let's see, I met Hillary Clinton in 1965. How many years ago is that? 1965. It's a lot of years. Anyway, I have all these people here, all of these people who are brilliant math majors, and they can't figure this out. But the thing I wanted to tell you about is that, I'll tell you about, I did actually technically have one date with Hillary Clinton in 1965. That is true. And I'll tell you about it later. But when she won four of the 5 primaries Tuesday night, here's what she said. She said, "I applaud Senator Sanders and his millions of supporters for challenging us to get unaccountable money out of politics and giving greater emphasis to closing the gap of inequality. And I know together we can get that done." Those are accommodating words, and those are words that any progressive would like to hear, right? I mean, you are comforted by those words, right? Well, when I posted them on my Facebook page, on this page you're now looking at, here's the first respondent. I mean, the respondent that got the most likes was somebody named Blocker Dawn. Blocker Dawn, is that your real name? Doesn't sound like your real name. But Blocker Dawn, here's what you said. "She," that is Hillary, "changes her tune far too often for me to feel confident that she'll follow through on any of Senator Sanders' ideals." And Blocker Dawn, you got 6,021 people who liked what you said and agreed with you. So Hillary Clinton, you might be saying the right things, and that's great, and I'm glad you are, but a lot of people need more confidence that you believe what you are saying. There is a kind of trust issue that you still have if you want to get a lot of Bernie supporters in the event that you become the nominee, and that's far from happening yet. In fact, Bernie Sanders, a lot of people over the past couple of days have called me in the Democratic Party. They said, "Well, will you please urge Bernie to get out of the race? He's just using up a lot of resources, and he's postponing what Hillary Clinton has to do." And I say back to them, Bernie Sanders is not going to get out of this race. Bernie Sanders is not just a candidate. Bernie Sanders is a movement. In fact, the movement would be there if Elizabeth Warren had run, or a lot of different progressives have run. This movement is about something far more than Bernie Sanders. It's about making our economy and our democracy accountable. It's reclaiming our political economy from the moneyed interests. And this movement is not stopping. And so Bernie Sanders and this movement are going to stay in and must stay in right through the convention and then beyond the convention. It's important. I think if anybody asked me that Bernie Sanders ought to be, if it turns out that he's not the nominee, he ought to be taking the millions of email addresses and personal addresses he has, people who have contributed to his campaign in enormous numbers, small donors, and use them to be the foundation of this movement and to continue this movement. This movement has been going on, but we now have a huge membership list, and it's possible to access all of these people. And that list is going to be terribly, terribly important, which brings me to probably the greatest asset that any Democrat running in this coming election, be it Bernie Sanders or Hillary Clinton, has, and that is the Trump. Donald Trump, he gave a foreign policy address yesterday. Did you hear about this? Did you? Well, maybe you didn't hear it, the key words, because he said, "Always put the interests of America first." Well, that's a foreign policy address. I suppose That makes some sense, although there are a lot of other people in the world besides Americans. But then he said, America first will be the overriding theme of my administration. America first. Now, what the Trump obviously doesn't remember, and I'm surprised he has nobody on his staff to tell him, is that America first, that phrase, had become a toxic phrase after Charles Lindbergh, the pro-Nazi sympathizer before the Second World War, used America First as his theme. He had America First committees all over the United States. That became the emblem of Nazi sympathizers in America. No politician would get close to the phrase America First. Drumpf. Which just reveals, not that the Drumpf is a Nazi sympathizer, I don't think, maybe he is, but that the Drumpf, I don't know. But what it reveals is his complete lack of any historical sense. He's a Dummkopf. Which brings me to another Dummkopf, and that is Ted Cruz. Now, Cruz, what you ought to know this week, I mean, he obviously made headlines by picking Carly Fiorina as his running mate. You don't pick running mates before you're even nominated to be president. I mean, what kind of politics is this? People in America right now decide that they're going to run for president, and suddenly they become presidential candidates. Not because a party made them presidential candidates. Do you think anybody other than Ted Cruz actually made Ted Cruz a presidential candidate? No, he decided he was going to be a presidential candidate. Like everybody else, you self-nominate. You have to be a pathological narcissist, or you have to have a really good cause to become a presidential candidate by yourself. That's the way you do it. And Carly Fiorina the same way. She decided she was going to be a presidential candidate. So you have somebody who self-nominated, who is still not a nominee for president, deciding that he is going to pick somebody else who was self-nominated to be his running mate. And she was her only claim to fame is that she was fired as CEO of Hewlett-Packard because she lost Hewlett-Packard so much money. And she also laid off thousands of employees while raking it in a huge amount of money for herself. And more recently, as a failed presidential nomination candidate, she used those trumped up, pardon the expression, videos that were trumped up to show that Planned Parenthood evidently, and it did not, was using fetal tissue and selling fetal tissue. And of course, those videos were proven absolutely false, but she kept on using them, Carly Fiorina. So you have Ted Cruz really becoming, a candidate with Carly Fiorina? I mean, what a stupid idea that is. And then meanwhile, John Boehner, the former Speaker of the House, talk about an endorsement. Here's what John Boehner said about Ted Cruz. He said, Cruz is Lucifer in the flesh. Lucifer in the flesh? But that's not the end of the recommendation. John Boehner said, I have Democratic friends and I have Republican friends, but I have never worked with a more miserable son of a bitch in my life than Ted Cruz. This man is loved. His colleagues, I have not met any Republican in Washington who has worked with him who has ever had a nice thing to say about Ted Cruz. Which brings us to the worst of the week. Now, the worst of the week, I could have chosen things that the Rump have said, or Ted Cruz has done, or any number of things, but I really want to bring this to your attention. This is your Speaker of the House, my Speaker of the House, Paul Ryan, and yesterday he was talking about the Affordable Care Act and things that he wants to do to the Affordable Care Act and believe that the next president, if it's a Republican president, will do. He wants to get rid of coverage for pre-existing conditions. He said less than 10% of people under 65 have pre-existing conditions. They're really uninsurable. They're really uninsurable? Well, that's what the Affordable Care Act was all about, to making sure they are insurable. He said we should fund risk pools at the state level for them. Well, you know what that means? You put all of these people with pre-existing conditions in the same risk pool. That means you can't ever insure them. It's too expensive. So what the genius of the Affordable Care Act was to get all of these people who have pre-existing conditions and cover them, and have young people who are healthy pay into an insurance fund so that the pre-existing conditions people could be funded. That's called social solidarity. That's called being in the same country together. That's called putting America first in a real, genuine, important way. All right, now that I've totally depressed myself, and probably you, let's have your questions. Maya Rogers. Virginia Governor McAuliffe gave 200,000 convicted felons their voting rights back. Will others follow suit, and should they? Amaya, I think this is a very important issue. You've got convicted felons who have paid their price to society. I mean, they've been convicted, but they have also gone to jail. They're out now. They should be voting members of society. And it was exactly right what Terry McAuliffe did. And I hope other governors follow suit, but I doubt other governors will follow suit, because a lot of Republican governors, the last thing they want is many convicted felons who are disproportionately, unfortunately, sadly, Latino and black to be voting. Koya Nguyen, did I pronounce that right? Tell me about all the possible paths for Bernie to still win. For example, 1, he runs as an independent. 2, well, no, he's not going to run as an independent. It's too late for him now to get onto the ballots, the national ballots, in most states. Number 2, superdelegates switch their votes. That's still possible. It's very low likelihood. But if you look at the polls, and if it looks like Hillary is actually tanking while Bernie is doing better and better, and Hillary Clinton's favorabilities are not great, and maybe John Kasich instead of Trump is the Republican nominee, well, maybe superdelegates begin believing in Bernie, but it's not very much of a possibility. Number 3, Hillary is indicted. Who knows? I don't think that's going to happen. And number 4, all the next contests are semi or open. Well, the next contests most of them are open, and the California primary in particular is very, very important. It's an important primary. It's on the 7th of June. Anybody from California who is looking at this and watching and listening, if you are not already registered in the Democratic Party, do register. I mean, you can register right up till right before, about a week or 2 before, but do it. So it's semi-open. Sharon Broder Pistilli, what do you think of the Bernie or bust movement? Would it be viable to petition for Hillary and Bernie to run on the same ticket? Also, I'm the same height as you, so we should be in solidarity. Well, thank you, Sharon. I feel for you, and I am very, very much on your wavelength. And we see eye to eye, Sharon. What do I think of the Bernie or bust movement? I don't want Donald Trump to be president. I think that would be a disaster. And if he's the Republican nominee, and it looks increasingly likely as he will be, and if Bernie is not going to get the nomination, well, if you sit on your hands and you don't vote for Hillary, you're going to make it more likely that Donald Trump, the bigot, the bloviating bigot, can I be very clear about this? He is a total, brainless, bloviating, bigoted buffoon. And you don't want him to be president. All right, Barbara Greer, shouldn't there be a lawsuit demanding that independents be allowed to vote in primaries on the grounds that they're publicly financed, that is I suppose you're saying the primaries and also the parties, and therefore not just a private party affair? Well, Barbara, you make a very, very important point, and I think that after the 2016 primaries, a lot of Americans now are far better educated than they were before about superdelegates and about closed or open primaries, and there's going to be a lot of pressure brought to bear upon states and the Democratic Party and even the Republican Party to make this a more transparent and more democratic process. And you're right, these are just not private clubs, because we have a winner-take-all system. That means you have inevitably two parties that emerge, and those two parties do have public responsibilities. Rita Butler, I would like to know why the Department of Justice and the FBI are stretching out the investigation regarding Clinton's server and emails. Quite frankly, I'm still appalled that this is so ignored by the media. Well, Rita, I'm not sure that they're stretching it out. I think they want to be very careful. From Hillary Clinton's standpoint, she would want to get it out of the way sooner rather than later. Can you imagine having, the worst case scenario, I don't think this is going to happen, the worst case scenario is that she's nominated and then something, one of these cases, investigations turns into an indictment. And then we really do get Donald Trump as president. So there's no reason they should be dragging this out. All right, Shwana Connolly. Anyone thinking about supporting Hillary Rodham Clinton was obviously never committed to the political revolution in the first place. Well, Shwana, I understand. I get a lot of emails and a lot of responses on my Facebook page like that from people just like you. But as I said before, do you really want a President Trump? Heather Foran, it would be wonderful to see more of Bernie's integrity overflowing onto all his supporters' pages. Integrity. Well, that's great. I think you're right. Amanda Pudru, I've heard Bernie say that our trade agreements need to be renegotiated so as to prevent losing so many good middle-class jobs. In other words, the answer is not to eliminate trade. Can you please explain what needs to change in our trade agreements and how those changes would look like? Well, Amanda, one thing I've been advocating for years is that we have agreements in which our trade partners agree to have minimum wages in their countries. Now, obviously not the same level of our minimum wage, but a minimum wage that rises as their countries become wealthier and is maybe half the median wage in those other countries. You see what that would do? It would mean the gains from trade are widely shared in other countries. That means more customers for our goods. It means more political stability abroad. That would be a positive sum outcome. There are many other things that can and should be done, and I think particularly China it must be a target for negotiation, renegotiation. Polly Burnell, are racial and gender equality as important as economic equality or economic inequality? If not, why? Polly, you can't separate racial and gender inequality from the broad subject of economic inequality. There's no way we can move toward wider and more shared prosperity in this country, as we were moving toward between 1946 and 1978, 1980. We were moving toward that, and we were bringing more and more women and more minorities into the middle class, and there's not a conflict between growing the middle class and having more equal rights for women workers and for minorities, for African American and Latinos. They go completely together. You can't do one without the other. Jay Wilson, do you think we need a Bretton Woods 2.0? And this time include what Keynes proposed back in 1944, that nation states' deficits and surpluses be subject to international governance, as opposed to just deficits? Jay, that's a fascinating and important idea. I think, actually, that we do need a new Bretton Woods. But we start with Europe. Europe is a basket case right now because exactly what you're talking about. There is really no authority in Europe governing the deficits and surpluses of any member state, and that's why they continue to go from bad to worse. The Greek debt crisis is still a huge problem in Europe. The growth in Europe, in fact, Europe is going to probably be suffering a recession or negative growth this year. So I would start with Europe. If you can do it in Europe, then there should be better coordination of monetary policy around the world. All right. Steve Schmidt, what do you think of the Uber $100 million settlement? Is it too much, not enough? Does it not address the underlying problems of the sharing economy? I think the settlement is a step in the right direction, Steve, but it doesn't really deal with the underlying Uber problem and the share economy problem, and that is that you have more and more jobs subcontracted to people who used to be called employees, used to have all of the labor protections that go with employment, 100 years of labor protections starting with Social Security and unemployment compensation and workers' compensation if they're injured and all kinds of other things. And as long as companies can easily move people from employment to subcontracting work, and that is exactly what Uber does. Those people are Uber employees in every respect except that Uber doesn't call them such. That means that Uber takes no risks, and all of the risks of employment are on the employees, and that's the problem. There's no legal settlement that's going to resurrect or remedy that. What you do have to have is a rule that when more than, let's say, 60% of your earnings come from a single company, you are therefore deemed legally an employee of that company. Do you get me? Okay, we've time for 2 more questions, and this is from Nachan Hallis. When are Robert Reich, Bernie Sanders, Cenk Uygur, Spike Lee, Michael Moore, etc. going to hurry up and throw a massive million-person crowdfunding rally at the National Mall in Washington, D.C.? That's a great idea. That's a great idea. I assume that the purpose of the rally is to do what? It's to further the movement to get our democracy back, right? It's a democracy movement, and by doing that, we have a fair shot at getting our economy back, because right now the rules of the economy are rigged in favor of the big corporations, Wall Street, and billionaires. So I'm all in favor. Count me in. I'll march tomorrow. You just, somebody's got to organize it. I can't organize it. What's so funny? I have people here who are laughing at me. Okay, last question. Adam Thielker. Given that none of our problems will magically disappear next year, no matter who's elected, how can we stay organized for the work that must be done? Adam, this is an important question. Every social movement in American history that has actually made change, and I'm talking about everything from the labor movement to the suffragette movement to the fight for 15 more recently and the Black Lives Matter, everything. You have to have tenacity. You've got to be organized and mobilized, but you can't be organized and mobilized just over 3 months or 6 months or 9 months. You really do have to do it. And the civil rights movement is a good example. You really do have to do it over years. You've got to understand that these things take time. You've got to plan a strategy, and you've got to have the patience that goes with having a political movement. I personally have been involved in several political movements. I'm old enough. I was involved in the civil rights movement, and I remember I was very young, and I was very small. I've always been very small. And in that civil rights movement, we had people who were thinking ahead, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. And that's the kind of thinking we have to have. I know it's hard because we get so caught up in the moment. We get so caught up in the political, crisis and the issue and the campaign. But we've got to think long term and strategically. Now, just a couple of other things quickly. I want to thank, I get a lot of Bernie swag. And this is a piece of Bernie swag. Wonderful. A pennant, a Bernie pennant that came in the mail. It came from Ken or Kel Dockham in Portland. This is a hand-screened, printed pennant, the very first fruits of his labor. Well, you must be young if it's the first fruits of your labor. But anyway, this is a great pennant. Thank you very, very much. And I think I showed you some of the other Bernie swag. I also want to remind you, we have a Kickstarter campaign underway to finance a new documentary we're doing based upon my last book, Saving Capitalism for the Many, Not the Few. And please, please help if you possibly can. This has got to be your effort and our effort, and we're very, very close. We've got about 81, 82% of the way. We've got 8 days, and we need your help. We need your support. And I also want to thank Zoe Umlaut Beck and Yael Bridge for their incredible help, incredible support. Next time we do this, I'm going to introduce you both to Zoe and also Yael, because they can't wait to get on camera. They are so extroverted. Anyway, thank you for joining us. We'll see you soon. Bye.